Hey everyone, welcome back to the Movie Couple channel. I'm Wendy and here's my review for Madame Web. Cassandra Webb, a paramedic in Manhattan who develops the power to see the future and realizes she can use that insight to change it. Forced to confront revelations about her past, she forges a relationship with three young women bound for powerful destinies, if they can all survive a deadly present. This movie stars Dakota Johnson as Madame Webb / Cassandra Webb. It also stars Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, and Isabella Merced. So this serves essentially as the Madame Web origin story and also her first entry onto the big screen. So first of all, a couple of interesting things about this movie. Cassandra Webb isn't a, superhero with typical superhero power. She doesn't have superhuman strength. She can't shoot webs, but she does have her psychic abilities, if you will, the ability to foresee the future. So the director of this movie, S.J. Clarkson, instead of taking it on like a regular superhero movie, she's making it more like the vibe is more psychological thriller, which I find interesting. Also, anytime that we ever read about Cassandra Webb or Madame Web in the comics, she is an elderly woman. She is blind. She is in a wheelchair. This Cassandra, or Cassie, essentially much younger. She's working as a paramedic in Manhattan. So I thought that it might be cool to see her origin this way. Like, what would Cassandra be like when she was younger before she, came into her powers and became Madame Web? And also from the trailer, we saw hints of the other Spider Women and seeing how they were going to be introduced into these, I guess, cinematic universe as well. Not really the MCU, but like the Sony Marvel Spider Universe. So while I find all of that interesting, unfortunately, this movie, it felt like a missed opportunity and it did not execute it well. I felt like the pacing was really uneven. Some parts moved along fine. The next part was really stagnant and they go on this like longer explanatory exposition that went on a lot longer than needed. Then there are certain scenes and scenarios that they place in that it gets kind of predictable, that you're like, okay, for sure you're showing this because later on something else is going to happen in the final act and you're going to kind of like call back to this scene and it's going to give it a full circle moment, but it doesn't, the payoff isn't good because you see it coming and the whole purpose of that one scene is to set up for that specific point. It just doesn't feel earned. The dialogue was really clunky. It was really weird. It didn't sound natural as much as the actors tried, and this is like to no fault of anyone in the cast. Everybody has a pretty good resume. I did like the girls together. I thought they were a lot of fun to watch, but they weren't given as much to do as I thought it was going to be. They looked fantastic in their suits, and it's disappointing that they weren't able to be in it more. I'm not going to spoil anything for you in this review. Like, if you want to find out, do watch the movie for yourself. But I was looking forward to, like, seeing them kick ass in their suits, and it was a lot shorter lived than what I was hoping for. I will say something that I liked was when Cassie's vision started to kick in. So there was an incident. So she works as a paramedic in Manhattan, and there was an incident during one of the rescues. And she has basically it's like a near-death experience, accident on the job. And that is essentially where her, like, power of visions and premonition, all of that kind of kicks in. And the way they shot that with the special effects, and they integrate like the web design, like the spider webs, and how it connects to certain things and kind of giving her that like out-of-body experience where she's looking at herself. Those scenes actually, to me, looked really cool. They're not always the same, but they have a similar feel. And that's where like the psychological thriller part really kicked in. Like some parts were, a little like, jump scares and loud noises and, flashes of images, and I thought those worked really well. And sometimes her premonition also plays out in like kind of a Final Destination way, where something will happen and she'll see it all happen, and she's still getting used to like, why am I having, these crazy, what is wrong with me, sort of a thing. And that was interesting to see Cassie kind of experience that, and then following, trying to get to the root of the problem, essentially. Like, why is this happening to me? and then she goes to look for answers, and more on that later. But sometimes the scenes would play out like a Final Destination, premonition, or vision, and she will have like a short amount of time to course correct before those visions come true. So it was cool to see her kind of like think it through, and knowing that like, okay, I can't, I don't have time to question whether this is real or not. It's literally happening, and I gotta go. So those things were cool, but other than that, the plot and the pacing, it just felt like really messy, really clunky. I was telling you that she kind of goes to look for the answers. She really goes and looks for the answer, and that right there kind of stopped the movie short in its momentum. Like, it just stopped, everything stops. She's gonna go look for her answers, and she'll be back in a week. And they make sure that they tell you she'll be back in a week. And it just felt like I don't know, I felt like that could have been either edited differently or written differently, because it really did. The film was starting to move along. I was like, okay, we're getting, I see where you're going with this, and then it just kind of like stops, and then we go on this like long exposition scene, and then we jump back into the action. But then by that time, I felt like the momentum and the excitement was lost, and there's a lot of moments where I feel like, why are these characters making these choices? And I felt like it's really out of the convenience for the plot, so that they can have these characters in these places, rather than like making it work more naturally. So that's a real bummer. Like, I wasn't a fan of the dialogue. I wasn't a fan of the pacing of the movie. I'm not a fan of the main villain. Ezekiel is the character's name, and in the beginning, it's interesting. In the beginning, he was kind of intimidating. He was pretty intense, but then for the rest of the movie, he was just angry, and he just yelled a lot. That was like his thing. Like, he went from this like really intense, I need to get to the 3 teenage girls because our destinies are entangled, and it's going to be bad for me if they continue to exist. So I'm going to take care of the problem. That's what made him really scared, like really scary, really ruthless in that way. And then somehow at some point, like maybe halfway through the movie, he just yelled. He yelled at his assistant. He yelled at the girls. He just yelled a lot. I was like, what happened to you? Also, I didn't find his suit super impressive or anything like that. It kind of reminded me of just like a plain black, kind of like a regular spider suit. The girl suits definitely looked much better. Look, I don't think Madame Web was a movie that I felt it was needed, though I thought the concept of bringing her origin onto the screen is really cool. The choice to make it a psychological thriller rather than like a movie with just all the superhero tropes, and I thought that was like ambitious and really like a really cool take that I wanted to see how they would interpret that. Unfortunately, in my opinion, it wasn't executed well. So yeah, I understand the intention of it, and it's setting it all up for like kind of their presence in the future films of like the Sony Spider-Verse. Unfortunately, the movie really didn't work for me. Oh, I should mention, you guys probably already figured this out from watching the trailer, but there was a tiny tie-in to Spider-Man. If you've read the comics, like with Madame Web, you know the connection between like Madame Web and Peter Parker and etc. They don't really mention Peter Parker by name, but the connection, I'll keep it kind of vague. Again, if you saw the trailer, you probably already have figured this out, but Cassie's coworker, where she works as a paramedic, is Ben Parker. So I'll just leave it at that. That is your connection. He's actually in the movie more than I expected. And again, like, the cast, they were fine, but they had to work with what they were given. So I don't think anybody's performances were bad. I think it really kind of, the fault lies in like the writing, the direction, perhaps the editing, and kind of just like the very, very clunky, messy plot. I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys my rating for the movie. The movie couple rating scale is listed in the video description below. I really was kind of like crossing my fingers. I was really hopeful. I was like, maybe it'll be good. Like, there were parts in the trailer that I saw. There are things that I really liked, and I was like, oh, I can see this like work. Unfortunately, it didn't work for me, and my rating for this movie is skip it. And there you have it. Those are my non-spoiler thoughts for Madame Web. Let me know your thoughts once you've seen the movie in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.